Marauders, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be installing on my 2024 Road Glide, I'm going to be installing a Stage 1 kit, which will be a Screamin Eagle Extreme Wedge air filter and the Screamin Eagle Pro Tune, Screamin Eagle Pro Tuner, Street Pro Tuner. And I put this decision off. I bought the bike in May. I put this decision off. It's now middle of September, and I decided I wanted to do this upgrade, and I really struggled, not so much with the tuner and exhaust, but with the air filter. The air filter, which I originally liked, and I'll post a picture of it in the video, was the Screamin Eagle Extreme Duty air filter. And you see that on the ST Harley Davidsons, where it comes out, the intake manifold comes out and it bends around and faces the front of the bike. A less boxier version of this. And the problem was before I purchased that, the parts counter, and I spent really analyzed the air filters for this bike. The parts person said, Peter, sit on the bike. One of the bikes in the showroom had it. And I sat on it, and I thought my knee cleared it, and it did not. And what I did not like about that air filter and intake was that it covered up the forward cylinder. And to me, the Harley Davidsons are all about seeing that V-twin, that massive V-twin engine. Each cylinder is almost 1,000 cc's pumping up and down. And I didn't want to cover that up. So I talked myself into the Extreme Wedge, Screamin Eagle Extreme Wedge air filter. And what I liked about that air filter is that you can see the forward cylinder and the rear cylinder. And in the other bike, I'll explain to you when I take this filter off, it had a block off kit to hide the fuel injection system on the motorcycle. I shouldn't say that, but I guess it was hiding the fuel injection system on a motorcycle. I'll explain that when I take this one off. And you can see that even the stock air filter sticks out from the bike, and if you can look at the image, and they tapered this purposely for any person of any size for their knee to get in close to that and get at the foot brake, which is beyond. And I believe the Extreme Wedge really is tight to the engine, and I think with the design flows the most air. Not that I'm going to be pushing this bike to 150 horsepower, but it's just an efficient air filter. So let's take off my stock air filter and we'll keep this video moving. Don't make these decisions easily to take apart a bike that runs extremely well, that I'm getting, and I know probably a lot of you don't check the fuel mileage. This bike, when I go on a ride with our group, I'm getting almost 50 miles to the gallon, which I think is exceptional for an engine which has this amount of torque and 105 horsepower. I think it's quite amazing. And I think Harley did a great job with the design of this stock air filter. It's just beautiful. Well, air filter intake system, I think it's just beautiful. So, and man, is it a big air box. I'll show you when I get it off the bike. Pull out this filter, which is very clean. So there's an Allen bolt up here and then two inside that I have to remove. And I'm going to try to remove them with a 9/64. 5 o'clock in the morning is not the best. They're Torx bolts, and they're 27 Torx, it appears. So I'm going to remove these, and there's 3 of them. And I think Harley accessories are fantastic. I really do. I think they've done a great job with their accessories. Most are very easy to put on, and I've installed a lot of accessories in my I've installed a lot of accessories, especially off-road, because you know, ATVs, you're putting winches on, you're putting bumpers on, you're putting storage boxes on, and some of them, especially on the side-by-side, rock climbers, doors I put on, the engineering, especially going back over 10 years ago, was not that good in my opinion on those accessories. In fact, I can tell you, I thought some of them were bad. You'd have to cut body components apart to put a door on, put a mount on for a door on a side-by-side, which I thought was ridiculous. So now there's two large, they almost look like they're 5/8 bolts in there. I'll give you a look. These 5/8 bolts, I'll give you the exact size. Those have to be removed. I'm going to shut the camera off while I go. A lot of different tools to take off an air filter. It's amazing. So this is actually 9/16 bolts inside. That's a bolt to hold on the air box. I don't know. I think that's a little extreme. And I'm sure they put, yeah, it had Loctite, a former Harley Davidson factory Loctite on it. That Loctite really worked. Okay, let's pull this out. I've watched enough videos. I know that there's a hose up in here. You can see that. I have to disconnect. So let's pull this hose off and work this out. You know, sometimes when you're doing these projects, it's the simplest thing. Like that vacuum hose, which should have been come off very easily, and it was a struggle. Had to work it off with a screwdriver, getting underneath it. It's almost like there was a film on this that adhered it, glued it to the air box. And this is a sizable air box. It's interesting that I've no doubt the Chromeworks mufflers, slip-on mufflers, added weight to the bike. This, probably removing this takes off a little bit of weight. Not a lot, but again, a sizable air box, I'm sure, for emissions and sound. It's designed for that. See how big the throttle body is. And my point was, on that extreme duty air filter, the one that snorkels out by the box where my knee was hitting it and shin comes out, they actually have a filler piece to cover this up. And essentially, the Extreme Wedge is a more efficient design, and I did not love it at first, but it covers up the electronics for the throttle body just in the filter itself. There's not a separate plate to do that. So let's go to the bench and start putting together the Extreme Wedge air filter. This taper piece gets installed on the back side of the base plate to the air filter, and it gets installed so in a manner it has these nubs on them, and on the inside, the side of this ring that faces out, it's tapered almost like a velocity stack, and it gets installed like that. It snaps in, and you can see that it's very smooth to guide the air on the outside of the bike, the air intake side of the bike. So that adapter ring's on there. And then the gasket, there's a notch in the gasket and in the back plate. And that's how you line up the gasket. And it's a stick-on, very rigid stick-on gasket. So that's stuck on. So that's the back plate that goes on. And then we have 3 bolts. Again, all different size. We have a different set of drivers for these. Let me see if I can find them. These are Allen drivers on these bolts, and the size for these are 5/32 drivers. And I think the 2 cap style bolts go on the inside. This style hex driver, I call it a cap head. These are rounded bolts, in my opinion. And then a cap head goes on the outside, that top one. So let's put this on. Let's put this on. I think we're done at our bench. We're not done at the bench. I forgot I have to install the 90-degree fitting for that vacuum hose to be installed. And by the way, I debated, and again, this has a form of Loctite on it, and that's on, and now we're ready to go back to the bike. I debated going with chrome. Some bloggers mix it up with chrome on a black engine, and the engine does have, as you can see, chrome on it, chrome accents, which I think is beautiful. All right, let's finish this. So that is where our tube gets hooked into. Hopefully it will go on easier than it came off. Oh, it's going on much easier. I don't know if that's good or bad. So the vacuum tube is on. Now I did put, the top bolt does have some factory Loctite on it, and it's nice it has that cap head that you can grab it and spin it on, hopefully. That's a different, oh man, I think that's funny. I'm jumping back and forth between different Allen drivers on the same mounting bolts. So I'm gonna get these two inside ones. The top bolt is a 3/16, and the bottom bolts are 5/32. My friends that own Japanese motorcycles, my friend Mikey and others say you can take them apart. You can take them apart with one tool. And obviously you can't do that, or with two different sockets or two different wrenches, metric wrenches. I don't know, working on the bike 5 o'clock in the morning, maybe that's not the best idea I've ever had. Man, these bolts are long too. Okay. This one's threading a lot easier than this one over here. Okay, now they're both going in okay. And you can start to see how I talked myself into this air filter, that you can see that beautiful V twin engine. And I should be definitely more comfortable on the bike than that Screamin Eagle heavy duty air filter. Oh my God, I actually love, you can actually see more of this than with a stock filter, and I really like that. So again, this was something, I didn't want this air filter setup, this air intake setup, and then I talked myself into it, and I think I'm glad. Again, I don't like that air filter is the first thing you see, but I like that it shows off the engine. And then I thought, well, the air filter is red, different, little bit of a contrasting red to the body paint on the bike, and I said maybe that will look nice. All right, let's keep going. The instructions say torque this to 55 inch-pounds. 55 to 60, I set it at 60, and that's where we're at. So those are torqued. Okay, so those are torqued. And then to put in the two factory bolts that I removed, these massive bolts. These massive bolts get reinstalled. They did have Loctite on them, really cakey Loctite. Man, this is, a tornado wouldn't take this off with these large 9/16 bolts on. So those are gonna get installed. I'm gonna tighten those down off camera. The angle of the lip on this back plate, I can't get a ratchet driver in there, and so I have to go with a straight Allen wrench, and I think it's tight enough, and I don't want to strip it. I can't grab anything with it, maybe a wrench, but that appears to be tight enough. I can't move it with the end of the wrench. Talk about a way to scratch your bike. So the original bolts get tightened to 24 foot-pounds. I think we're done with our torque specs for this back plate. I did clean it off with some cleaner. I wanted that to be as clean as possible. And now let's assemble the actual filter itself. So you can see these bolts that go on the outside of the filter in 3 different areas. Long bolts go up front, short bolts go in the back. I put a little bit of drop of Loctite on these to hold them on. These are 12 point bolts. I don't have a 12 bolt socket to put on these, but an 8mm open wrench seems to work. So I can't really torque these down to any spec because I don't have a socket for it. I'm going to be fumbling and bumbling with filters trying to do this, but let's do the best we can. I want to give this back plate one more wipe down. And it didn't have a lot of dust on it, but I want to get it as clean as possible. Starting to see it come to shape. That's the perimeter air filter, the big V. And again, it's wider in the front, or the wedge, they call it extreme wedge, narrower in the back. And this end cap filter goes one, and I think these are all K&M filters, which are a high quality filter. That gets nested inside the perimeter filter like that. Isn't this a huge filter compared to the one I took out? And what they don't tell you in the instructions is you need an extra set of hands to do this. She's looking good, guys. That one started. Premium. I'm loving it. You know, I always preach to everyone, have the right tools for the right job, collect tools, and I don't have 12-point sockets. When I was younger, you didn't want 12-point sockets, you wanted 6-point sockets because 12 points would strip, you know, I was working on old equipment at work, and they would strip the bolts, so you wanted a 6-point to have more surface area. And I do have 11/32 6-point socket. Let's see if I can snug it down with this. And that seems to bite it. That seems to work without damaging it. Woohoo! And they bottom out. These are good because they bottom out. Okay, let's put this 12-point wrench on it to snug them up. I didn't damage any of the heads on these bolts. Woohoo! Love it. Love it. I debated so long on this. Let's polish her up for you. Uh-oh, looks like I'm going to have to clean the chrome on the engine now. See it? Wow, I love it. Now I think you can see what I'm talking about. Oh, you have to be able to see that. So it really, as much as I wasn't wild about the looks of this air filter, and again, it's the Extreme Screamin Eagle Extreme Wedge, I finally settled up that I like that it showed off the front cylinder, the V-twin engine, especially that front cylinder wasn't hidden. And look at how tight it is to the body of the tank compared to even the stock. I mean, it's over an inch tighter on the bike, over an inch closer into the bike, and it's all filter, all air filter, all intake. So this should flow a lot of air. And open this up. Okay, let's get to the tuner. Okay, so now it's time to install the Screamin Eagle Pro Street Tuner. This is the box it comes in. This is a tuner. And it gets plugged into this. I want to say it's probably what the mechanics plug into when they service a motorcycle. And it's in a holder. It's in a holder behind the center. It's in a holder behind the panel that conceals the main fuse panel up here and all the other fuses for the bike. So it's floating. You unlock it from there and put it in, and the Pro Tuner gets plugged into this. And by the way, I'm not an expert. The instructions online aren't the best for this. Cycle Fanatics has an excellent video, and if you can see this, I'll try to zoom in, but it gets plugged in and it locks in like that. Okay, so now I'm going to switch and I'm going to screen share. Well, let me rephrase that. I don't know that I'm going to screen share, but I have the Screamin Eagle Tuner app on my phone. Okay, so I have the Screamin Eagle Tuner app on my phone. I'm going to open that up. and I'm recording this so you should be able to see it. I'm going to hit go to tune. A Bluetooth connection interface is required to access this feature. Connect BCI. To start the pairing, turn the key to the on position. With the engine off, the BCI will broadcast a message to your mobile device. So the BCI is plugged in. It has a green light that's flashing on it. And it found it up. Hopefully I can screen share this. But it did find the BCI. Tap on it.
After 700 feet, turn right.
The motorcycle's talking to me. Program SE calibration or perform a smart tune to optimize the calibration for the specific vehicle. So I don't have, I have standard calibration. Let's go through. So I have a stage 1 kit, and that's an application 2024 Touring Center Cooled Configuration Milwaukee 117 stage 1 components. I have the air cleaner. I have the Screamin Eagle exhaust. I don't have that, but I do have Chromeworks, which is the equivalent, if not better, than the Screamin Eagle exhaust. And that's the tune I want to put it in. The one below that is a stage 2. I don't have the cam, so I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to program the stage 1 tune. So let's hit that, program this calibration. When reflashing the motorcycle, ensure the phone is within 20 feet. Direct line of sight is recommended. Bluetooth connection is broken during reflash. Process permanently damaged. The motorcycle can occur. Okay, let's hit OK. I'm within 20 feet. Please be sure the calibration you have chosen matches your vehicle's installed hardware. An inappropriate calibration may make your vehicle non-compliant with EPA regulatory emissions standard. Are you sure you want to continue with this? Yes, I do. If equipped, please turn off radio prior to calibration programming. I believe it's off. The calibration on the EHCU module is compatible with a 21-inch front end. That's right. Programming motorcycle with final cal. Your motorcycle would be programmed with a final calibration. Once program is complete, your motorcycle will be ready to ride. Tap the program motorcycle button to initiate the program process. The program operation will take a few minutes to complete. Please turn the ignition on and off, then back on, but do not start the engine. So I guess it wants me to turn off and then back on for this next step. We'll try that. Off and then on. Oh, and it's now it hits the program. It's saying I can program it. Bada beam. So let's hit the programming. Hopefully I'm programming in progress. Do not interrupt the programming process. The motorcycle may be programmed by corrupted data. Downloading calibration from phone to BCI. It downloaded the calibration from the internet to the phone very quickly. Okay, now it's downloading the calibration from the phone to BCI. That happened really fast. My bike is dirty. Processing the files sent to the BCI. Programming ECM calibration from BCI. This is, Harley Davidson just gets beat up and beat up and beat up. So this bike is 105 horsepower. I think this tune, a factory tune, this setup, I think adds 12 to 15 horsepower to the motorcycle. That's very close to a CVO and all for a very reasonable price. Okay, now let's read what this says. Your motorcycle calibration has been programmed to the motorcycle. Your motorcycle now has your custom calibration installed. You can repeat the process as many times as you would like to refine your calibration. Before continuing, you must turn off the vehicle ignition switch and run stop switch. Wait 20 seconds, then turn on the ignition switch and run stop switch. So let's turn it off. Turn it back on. I have no codes on the motorcycle, and it says I'm done. So the bike is tuned. Now the sun is just coming up. It's 10 to 7. Starting this motorcycle and driving it. I can't do it at 7 o'clock in the morning because with this Chromeworks exhaust, 4.5, 4.50, 4.5 inch Chromeworks exhaust, I'm going to wake up everyone in the house. So I'm not going to start the bike. I'm going to wait till a little later. I might run it to work and do a recording when I'm going to work for you. So let's close that. And we're done. And this bike is tuned. Again, they have double pack tape here to stick it into the bike. Cycle Fanatics seemed to just tuck his in like this. He didn't use the double back tape. So it is locked in. And I'm going to tuck it into here like so. Like that. It seems to want to ride nicely in that orientation. She's tucked in there nicely. I think this adds between 12 and 15 horsepower. I'm not a horsepower junkie. When I was riding this bike in cooler weather, high 50s, and it was humid, even a little rain, it did seem like the air filter and muffler were restricting the bike's airflow. It just seemed to bog down ever so slightly. Most of the time you wouldn't even notice it. The motor is excellent. I can't say that. It's an excellent motor. But to have a factory upgrade from the manufacturer that adds that amount of horsepower for a reasonable amount of money and that can be installed by a hack mechanic like myself, I'm probably average mechanic just like the rest of you, I think that's exceptional. I really do. I think hats off to Harley Davidson. That's why I always say that on my channel. Hats off to them. From what I've seen on the internet, the people who've installed this, I want to say Week Off Garage is a young man who has really put a lot of accessories on his Road Glide. Also Cycle Fanatics, who's got a great channel. And really I watched his video before I did this. He was a big help. They seem to be very satisfied with this tune, and maybe in a year or so I'll do a stage 2 and put a cam on this, but I already have the tuner, and I'm really not interested in doing a tune outside of Harley Davidson, to pushing this to the extreme. That doesn't interest me at this time. Why Harley Davidson calls this the Extreme Wedge. So here's the Extreme Wedge, Screamin' Eagles Extreme Wedge. And then here is the stock air filter compared to the Extreme Wedge to give you a comparison. Quite a difference in the air filter size. Okay, 66 millimeter throttle body. I have to double check that figure, but